Hello, hope you're having a good day. I'm TR Rose of Meow About Cosplay. It's kind of a challenging time to be a crafter. Joann Fabrics going out of business, going away forever, price increases, scarcity concerns. So I've made an effort that this year I'm going to be crafting from things in my stash, things I've already got, rather than going out and purchasing new supplies either in person or online. I'm going to make an effort to work through my stash of fabrics. And I thought a great place to start would be those 2 scraps boxes of minky fabrics that I bought from Big Z Fabric over the past few years. In this video, I'm going to show you some things that I've already created from those scraps boxes, and even some things that I have in progress that I'll finish up later this year. The first thing that I made from the scraps box is this little Starman from the Super Mario Bros. Super Show that I made out of mochi fabric that came in the first Big Z Fabric scraps box. Now, he's very squishy, he's very simple. He is essentially the way that I give beginners instructions to make their very first plushies, where you take 2 pieces that are the same size and you sew them together sort of like a pillow. So this little guy is very cute, he's very squishy, and he actually kind of serves like a little stress ball. So if you squish on him, he works really well for that. And speaking of mochi fabric, another thing that I made from the scraps box exclusively is this little Espion. This Espion is made from the Choli Night Evolutions pattern, and it's really cute. I didn't have any purple mochi in my stash before I made this little guy, but it was a great learning experience for a couple reasons. For one thing, I learned that if you use mochi fabric and you don't stuff it with the silky soft or mochi specific stuffing, he kind of feels a little bit rougher. Some of the fibers of the polyfill stuffing poke through the mochi. So that was a great learning experience for that. The other thing I love about making this guy out of mochi is that I can compare it to the same pattern made out of different materials and see how the mochi fabric behaves. So this is something that I use in my Plush Making 101 panel that I present every year at AllCon Dallas. This is mochi. This little guy is fleece. So you can see the mochi one's a lot chunkier, even though it's the exact same pattern pieces to make the finished plush. And for further comparison, this one is made out of cotton, which doesn't have any stretch at all. So you can see that the exact same item, no stretch, some stretch, all the stretch, comes out looking very differently, even though these were the exact same pattern pieces to get started. So I think it's a great example, it was a great learning experience, and it was a great inspiration because I didn't have any mochi in purple. I've shown this little guy before, he's still in progress, but I made him out of the Choli Night basic doll pattern. I use a ton of her patterns, I'm really a big fan. But the tunic and the hat were made out of a nice, very silky soft minky fabric that came out of the Big Z Fabrics box. It's a color that I didn't really have an equivalent of in my stash previously, and I think it works really well. It's a more realistic green, more Hyrule Warriors Twilight Princess Link, as opposed to the bright, vivid Kelly green from Ocarina Link. So I would still like to work on him some more. I'd like to add something to represent the chainmail shirt. I kind of want to do the blue warrior style scarf, but he works pretty well just as he is now. This is the largest plushie that I have ever made. This is also originally based on a Choli Night pattern that I turned into a puppet. So this is a big, very fluffy dragon. And those fabrics I did purchase last year specifically for this project. However, the horns and the little claws were made out of a tan minky fabric that came out of the Big Z Fabric scraps box. So even though I did purchase some specific fabrics for this design, I could also use things out of my stash to fill in the sections where I didn't want it to be the big fluffy fabric. This is the most detailed plush that I think I've ever made. Every single fabric from this wolf link from a Choli Night free pattern came out of my stash. The dark gray, which you can see on his face and on his back, was something I already had, but every other fabric came out of the Big Z Fabric scraps box. And that's actually one of the reasons I chose to make this particular plush, especially with the colors that I used. The dark navy blue, and then the matching navy blue longer pile fur. That's the reason why I chose to make his darker colors a navy blue instead of the darker green that the pattern called for. Because I really like this longer textured fabric, especially on the hair and the tail, because it makes him look more fluffy. So this took a ton of work because of all the embroidery and all the applique on him. But I probably wouldn't have chosen to make him if I didn't already have all these great colors in the scraps box. It was a great source of inspiration. But I think he turned out really well, and I think he's just adorable. And finally, I have one more plushie to show you, and this is still work in progress. She's not fully done, but I wanted to show you. This is a Princess Toadstool plush that I'm working on, based on a bootleg pattern that I took apart from a bootleg plush. And it's one I've used before if you watched my Patisserie Peach video. The skin tone fabric and the hair fabric I already had in my stash. However, the light pink for the dress, the darker pink for her shoes, and then the darker pink mochi all came out of the scraps box. This is something that I wanted to have in my collection. It's a plushie of a character that never had any official merch, so I definitely wanted to make that. But having these colors of pink was really interesting and provided a nice variety, because then I could compare it with the skin tones to pick out exactly the colors of pink I wanted to use. And the mochi fabric for the dress is interesting. As I mentioned with the Espeon, I wasn't really pleased with using the standard polyfill, but when it's used as a skirt that is not stuffed, and then the belt piece that is glued on top, you can really get a good use out of that mochi fabric without having any of the fibers poking through. So this is still work in progress, not done, but I'm hoping to have her done soon, and I will have a full video showing how I put her together also. Thanks for watching today's video. I hope it inspires you to go out and create something from your own craft stash without having to go out and buy anything new. So be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And most importantly, I hope you had fun and learned something. Take care.